There's a blanket under the shins like this. You take a blanket, you bring your knees up, you put it under your shins. There's a gap between the legs and the pelvis. The pose itself is called Sukha, Sukhasana. The palms face up. We relax if we want. We drop our shoulders if we want. It's all very optional. We breathe naturally and maybe movement comes. There's a very fine line between being spaced out and being focused, but there is a line. And there's a sense of opening to the way things are right now. Things like feeling subtle breezes, if you can feel any breeze on your skin, or if you can feel the hardness of your feet on the floor on your feet rather. Or if you can feel the soft buttocks against a firmer block and then through to the sitting bones, feeling these tangibles. Not holding the breath, but also not contriving it, just comes and goes. And allowing movements, including left and right and forwards and backwards. So the movements are there to create relaxation here and now. The tailbone's relaxed, the back of the pelvis is relaxed. Breathing is easy. Hands to the heart center. Stay relaxed if you like, optionally. Just holding in your heart, in our heart centers, the wish for all beings to be well, free of mind-created suffering. And all beings includes this being, you know, the being that's wishing it for other beings, what we might ordinarily call myself. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms diagonally down and raise your arms up. As the arms come up, make sure you're not tightening up anywhere, like the neck. Take breaths. What's wonderful about yoga is you come as you are, which I think is a nirvana line, but you come as you are. Nirvana, of course, is the name of Buddhist enlightenment as well as the rock band. So you come as you are, which means exactly, you know, we respond exactly to how this feels right now. And that's what yoga is, a response to how things are right now, an exact response to exactly how things are right now. And what gets in the way is preconceptions, expectations, and so on. Okay, take a big wide circle. Well done. Hands rest on your legs. Take a deep breath if you want. These deep breaths can help release the diaphragm. Jaw soft, eyes soft, throat soft. Just stretch out your fingers so you can stretch and contract. And this, of course, stretches the nerves that go all the way up the arms to the brachial plexus and just begins to loosen them. And then we're just going to change the cross of the leg. So that's pretty simple. The other leg goes in front. Having brought the other leg in front, draw the buttock flesh out and back. So you feel yourself to the inner front edge of the ischiotubrostids and the sitting bones. Chest is buoyant, palms face up, shoulders are down. And the eyes can be closed or open, or half closed, like a Buddha. If you're not sure what Buddhas look like, there's one there. And you might think, how come, if the Buddha was from South Asia, how come his eyes are blue? Texts tell us that his eyes were blue, and some people from South Asia do have blue eyes, especially from the Kashmir region. Anyway, eyes closed or half closed, moving, you know, like left or right, feeling things like solidity. We sometimes call that earth element, just to make it sound more hippie. It's just solidity, like the floor or like your legs. They've got bones, haven't they? And you can feel the solidity of the relative solidity of the bones. And really about non-contrived, natural weekend vibe relaxation. Hands to the heart. And we dedicate our merit, yeah, which means that we'll just have the little wish, if we want, to dedicate any merit that we gain in acting in the way we're going to act to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. So just reflect on that. And that includes this being that's saying it. Don't hold your breath. Doubt makes you hold your breath. There's nothing to doubt, because there's nothing to know apart from this moment. And this moment is the way it is, isn't it? It's like exactly like this. And then once you're open to exactly how it is, the response to exactly how it is comes as well. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms, raise your arms up. So don't think of yoga as a set of postures that you go from not being very good at to being very good at, because that will mess you up thinking that. A, because it's historically complete rubbish. B, because as the years go by, you get older, not younger, just in case you didn't notice. And C, it's a complete red herring. What yoga is instead is a response to exactly how the way things are right now. That response comes through the body, brain, breath, sometimes the voice. And you don't have to worry about it's like, God, I don't know how things are right now. Things are the way they are right now. You don't have to make anything up. Right? What we need to do is drop our expectations about what we think they should be like. You know, I should be more whatever, more awake, more relaxed, more whatever, less distracted. All of those things, you know, they are the blockage. Take a big circle. Well done. Hands to your legs. Take a deep breath. In and followed by the classic out, and then followed by another in, and followed by another out, and so on. You can wiggle your fingers if you want. And then remove the blanket and put it to one side and fold your legs back so that they come to the outside of your blocks. Now, 2 blocks probably is enough, but I guess some people might want to sit on more height. If your knees are tight, then do. You know, 3 blocks, even 3 blocks with a blanket. Make sure your knees can handle it. And sitting on enough stuff means sitting on a lot of stuff for some of us, and that's fine because we've got a lot of stuff at the BBC, Brighton Buddhist Centre. So this is called Virasana. Vira means hero. It's a particular kind of hero, actually, but we won't go into that right now. It's the kind of, just to say that it's the kind of hero that will meet yoginis. Yoginis are kind of incredibly powerful beings within the mythology of yoga. Anyway, that's shorthand. Interlace your fingers, rest your thumbs on your legs, breathe through your nose. So you interlaced your fingers, you're resting your thumbs, breathe through your nose. Soften the temporal lobes, the frontal lobe, the occipital lobe of the brain. And relax generally, and then raise your arms up. It's sometimes called Parvatanasana. Parvata is the name of a mountain. It can also be called Udvabhata Angulyasana, but that's quite a mouthful. So perhaps we'll stick with the first one. Udvabhata Angulyasana means upwardly bound fingers. Relax, because what causes us not to relax, of course, is doubt. When we think, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? The first problem with doubt, the first reason for doubt is the creation of I. If you create an I, you're going to create doubt, because the I you make is made of things that don't agree with each other. It itself is not real. Take a big wide circle. Hands to the heart center. Take a deep breath if you want. In and out. And then more of those in and out breaths. Jaw soft, brain soft, throat soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Okay, release your hands when you're ready and come off your block and onto hands and knees whenever you're ready. I'll face this way so that the Zoomers don't just get a sort of bottom view, although of course I'll have a very fine bottom, but it doesn't mean that people want to see it all the time. So you come onto your hands and knees and take a breath or two. and just have a look at your hands. Make sure, if you look at your little fingers, make sure that the little finger of each hand is the same distance from the side of the mat as its opposite. And imagine it really mattered, and imagine it mattered to the millimeter. Right, so look back and forth and back and forth. We're going to pop up into Adho Mukha Svanasana. That is the downward facing dog position when we're ready, including immediately to pop up if you're ready. And I think it's useful to pad one's paws, aka hands, into the mat with the intention to integrate. So everything's made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. And so the molecules of your palms can integrate with the molecules of the mat. And that's what the padding is about. It's a psychophysical experience. In other words, you feel it with your breath, you feel it, with the body, you feel it with the mind. Many people find it useful to move the bum left, right, bend and extend the knees and so on, and stretch through the back. And not just the back, but also the front, so through the chest, through the armpits to the groins. The heels go back while the groins go up. And that will do for our first Adho Mukha Svanasana. We're going to bring our shoulders forwards, so the shoulders hover, as it were, above the wrists. The whole body is a sloping line from shoulder blades to buttocks, from buttocks to heels. And then slightly annoyingly, I imagine this will be, I'm going to ask you to lower your knees and touch the floor without any weight, no weight at all. Not putting weight, just making contact. So knees are touching the floor with no weight. It's quite annoying. And then we're going to raise one leg and keep one knee down with no weight. And then bring the other knee down and bring that knee up with no weight. And then both knees up and both knees forwards, back to hands and knees. Catch a breath, wag your tail or circle your pelvis. Just taking deep, natural breaths. So circling the pelvis can be nice. Wagging the tail can be good. Moving backwards and forwards. The thing is, we're not pre-contriving what we're doing. This is a direct response to exactly the way things are. A direct response to exactly the way things are. And what inhibits us knowing the way things are is our obsessive focus on the mind's natural, constant claptrap. So the mind is constantly claptrapping, and that's fine. I've compared it recently to a sausage machine, especially finding out that the Buddhist Centre itself used to be a sausage factory. It's just churning out sausages from any old stuff that's lying around. And those sausages are thoughts, and they just keep coming out. Pop, there's a thought, there's a thought, there's a thought, there's a sausage, there's a sausage. And that's what the brain does. It just makes thoughts. So that's fine. But we don't want to attach to them. They're just made out of anything that's lying around at the moment. That's how we make thoughts. Anything that's lying around. There used to be a myth, I hope it's a myth, about sausages, that they make them out of any old crap that's lying around in the meat factory. Now bring one knee forwards, let's say the one furthest away from me, and bring the foot diagonally across the body and take your time to stretch your other leg back. Now some people find it useful to put a block under the buttock like this. Some people don't. Now if your knee is uncomfortable, many people will find it useful to lean right across the knee. Especially if it's medial discomfort, that is to say on the inner knee. Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. Breathe easy, breathe natural. Good, good, good. Breathe easy. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Breathe easy, breathe natural. Take a few deep breaths. So yoga is an exact response to exactly the way things are right now. Just going to put that there. Yeah, my pleasure. An exact response to exactly how things are right now. Leaning forwards can be good, can be helpful. Good. Okay. So, your knees in quite an interesting position, quite a good position, but not the right one. So where it wants to be is you start on hands and knees, we do it together. And then your knee goes there. Then your foot moves, but not the knee. That's it. And then your back leg stretches back. Yeah, that's it. Knees nice and slow, take it real slow. And then you still get that treat under the bum, though. And then you just breathe into that. Couple more deep breaths. This pose is called Adho Mukha Ekapada Raja Kapotanasana. How annoying. And it means head down, one leg, king pigeon pose. Silly, really. Okay, come up. Tuck your back toes under, bring your back knee forwards, come back to hands and knees and catch your breath. Sometimes it's nice, it's sort of natural to have a few deep breaths. It's nice for the diaphragm. The diaphragm sometimes becomes a little sort of inflexible. I mean, it tends to not be able to move as easily with the way the breath needs it to, because we're holding tensions due to the fact that we're holding doubt. And we're holding doubt because we're not sure what it is that we are supposed to know. But it's this, and this is how it is, isn't it? Right now, there's nothing outside. There's no books you need to read. Okay, the other knee forwards, the other, bringing that foot diagonally across the body, stretching back your other leg in your own time. Good job. And breathing through your nose. So to start us tuning out / tuning in, we have to tune out of all the things that distract us from the way things are, which includes attachment to the past, like this happened before, so I'm excited that it will happen again, or this happened before and I'm scared it will happen again. So it's called Sukhanushayi Ragaha, Dukhanushayi Dveshaha in Sanskrit. Or you're either attaching to the past or the future, or we're attaching to a sense of what am I supposed to do right now? And that causes doubt as well. So we move away from that, firstly, just by feeling really obvious sensations like the earthiness of our experience, the solidity, where we feel the floor pressing into the body, where we feel bones moved around flesh, and flesh moved around bones. Deep, expressive breath. Okay, good job. Come back up slowly. Bring your back knee forwards after tucking your back toes under. Come back to hands and knees, catch a breath. Again, a bit of wagging of the tail. Part of the reason we do the stretches and body toning things is to usurp the patterns that are already in the body that make it difficult for us to see the way things are and therefore to respond. Anyway, that's a context. Now take the arm furthest away from me and feed it underneath the pose, palm facing up towards me. Your bottom arm you should be turning towards me at this point. If you're turning away from me, you've turned the wrong way. You should be able to see the Buddha, the big Buddha picture. And, and you're on your fingertips and breathing easy. That's okay. And breathing through the nose. And the deltoid muscle is the one that caps the shoulder. I often describe yoga in a very simple way, that there's two shores and there's a river in between them, two banks of the river. And you want to get from one to the other. And each one represents a different thing.
One shore represents being in a universe where everything feels separate, disconnected, like success and failure, good and bad, right and wrong, health and ill health, you and me, gain and loss, us and them. That's one side of the river. And then the other side of the river, everything appears as interdependent. Body, brain, and breath are all one with everything else. Compassion is a normal experience. So how do you get between the two sides of the river? A strong sensation, like a stretch or listening to the buzzing of a creature. Strong sensation of any kind. Could be a stretch, could be muscular work, could be the smell of a flower. And then giving to that strong sensation through the breath. Sort of say yes. And giving also means giving up. Giving up that which is resistant. Attachments to ideas about yourself, attachments to ideas about the future, attachment to ideas about the past. Bring your arm back, push back, hands and knees, catch your breath. Deep, expressive, natural, honest. Jaw soft, eyes soft, throat soft, brain soft, tongue soft. Other arm comes underneath, palm facing up. And so you're facing the other way, away from me. The other arm extends out onto your fingertips. So I think it's agreed, we can all agree that we can feel some rich sensations. The stretch of the deltoid that caps the shoulder, other muscles we can feel along the ribs, serratus anterior and so on. We can feel where the floor is kind of firm against the head, and hopefully the head's a little bit softer than the floor, otherwise we've got a very hard head. And you can feel these areas of solidity, and they're just, all they are is a sort of way into a more open feeling of knowing exactly how things are and being willing to let go of whatever, of views and opinions. One of the difficulties that we have is letting go of our problems. Many people are surprisingly reticent to let go of problems. We somehow feel, I can't let it go unless I've figured it out. Famous story in Buddhism about somebody who gets struck in the eye, a bit King Harold-like, by an arrow, and it really needs to be removed, otherwise he's going to die, but he refuses the physicians to remove it until he's found out what the wood is made, what kind of wood it is, what kind of feathers are used, what tribe made it, what kind of bow fired. And by the time all the answers have been found out, he's a goner, right? So if you can just let go of problems, and then just let go of problems. You don't need to, you don't need to figure them out if you can let go of them. And often you can. Often there's this opportunity. Okay, bring your arm back and back onto hands and knees and catch your breath. Take 2 or 3 or 4. Now, some people will be like me less for this. We're going to tuck the toes under, and that's okay. And then we're pushing back, and that's okay. And we want to stay in the realms of okay. So it might be that you push back, just stretching the plantar fascia. You might stretch back a little bit. Some people are okay to come onto the fingertips. That's fine too. Or even what I call high heel sitting, which is fine for some and loathed by others. So it's optional. So all you got to do is stretch your toes. Don't mind how much. You can be forwards like this and just pushing back a bit, or you can be sitting up more. You just got to stretch your toes. That's all. Breathe through your nose as you stretch your toes. And this is the plantar fascia. So it's very, very, very useful to stretch the toes. Very, very useful. Now remember the metaphor of the river? 2 shores, a near bank, a far bank. We want to cross. There are 2 stepping stones. A rich sensation. There it is. And then breathing into that rich sensation. And that purifies the nerves. Because we're willing to let go of what's driven into the nerves, and then drives the muscles from there. Expectations, views, and opinions. Okay,
Enough's enough, and even a good thing. We're going to attempt what I call standing up. I did it. Okay. So well done. You did it. I'm very proud of you. Hands on your hips. Step your feet apart. Breathe through your nose. Wide collarbones. It's a very sort of confident posture, isn't it? Standing like this. Breathe through your nose. Feel into your feet. Feel into your toes. Maybe you can spread your toes a little. Maybe you can jostle your ankles a little. Just in ways that allow us to feel more and more of exactly the way things are. It's the problem with liberation. The difficulty with liberation is that it's so easy. That's what makes it so hard. Because we always think there must be more to it. Look at all the books that there are. All the books that Eckhart Tolle has written. He's written 3 or 4 or million sellers, billion sellers. And he's just one. Alan Watts, he's written loads. Arjun Samado, on and on. So we must think, God, there's so many books on freedom. But all it is an exact response to exactly how things are right now. But to get in touch with that, you've got to be willing to let go. Now turn your back toes in, turn your front foot and leg out on the ball of the foot first, finish off the turn on the heel. Heel to arch is the alignment we're going to go for. So have a look. Have a look, heel to arch. Then we're simply going to stretch energy or attention into the back leg as we bend the front knee and bring our elbow down, stretch our arm up and over too. Good job. There's the option to look up under the armpit. There's the option to not stretch over, but to have the arm up. There's also the option to not stretch the arm up, but have it on the hip. There's also the option to reach your arm around and hold your thigh. Stretch into your back leg. And look up under the armpit. Take an interest in the pose, the living moment. Especially bits that are rich. Okay, arm down, palm down, push into the leg, use an inhale to come up. Hands on the hips, feet face forwards, breathe through your nose. Take deep breaths if you want. Bring some attention to your pelvic floor. So one way to do that is to move the pelvis, like left, right, or circle it, but very naturally. It's not like a contrived movement. You're using it to feel into the body. And so the movements are serving that. There aren't prescribed movements that are right or wrong. There's just movements that tune you in and movements that don't. Right to the pelvic floor. Stay in touch with the pelvic floor as you turn your back toes in, turning on the ball of the front foot, finishing off the turn on the heel to arch alignment. Good job. Inhale, stretch the arms, exhale, bend into the back leg, stretch into the back leg, bend the front knee, elbow down, stretch up and maybe up and over. Optional. Very optional, this class today. And enjoy if you want, that's optional. You can also not enjoy, that's another option. Or you can just be neutral. And you can explore. You can explore, tone the tummy, especially if your name begins with J and ends with SE. Okay. Tone the tummy and repeatedly do that. Yeah, pulling up from the pubis to the chest. Bring the bottom ribs forwards. There you go. Inhale, come on up, press down it. All the way up. You've done it. Hands on the hips. Breathe into it, feel the solidity of the way things are. This is the great thing about yoga. You don't need to learn loads of books or book work or anything like that. And that's just interesting. If you want to read something rather than OK magazine or something, then you can read yoga stuff. It's interesting, but you don't need it to learn yoga. That's one of the things you learn by reading yoga stuff, that you don't need to read it. Turn your toes in and heels out. It's a rather bad advert for the 4 books I'm working on. Anyway, inhale, come up from the inner groins. stretch up in the inner groins, fold over the top of the front thighs. That's a hinging action. Maybe you can feel a little drawing up through the front thighs and you bring your fingertips to the floor. Now, if it's hard to reach the floor, go wider. You can use blocks for your hands as well. Try and keep your spine open. And if it feels like a big, strong stretch, I suggest furrowing your face up into some sort of face that's objecting in some way. You can do that. That can be useful. Or breathing deeper. Most people tend to push a lot of weight to the outer ankle. And that's partly because the little toes are so very shy, aren't they? They always want to scuttle under the other toes, the little toes. So a good project is to liberate your little toes. And it takes, well, so far I've been on it for 33 years. And I'm still on it. So that gives you an idea. Don't expect to go, one class, little toes extended, Now, it's beneficial to extend the little toes because it extends your prana, your energy, your life force throughout the body, which makes it equal. This all over Vyana Vayu, equal energy. Equal energy spreading through the body means that we're not biased. Our opinions, our views are not biased. Good. So repeatedly coming back to the little toe extension. One thing you could do, I find it useful anyway, is to lift up the front portion of one foot at a time. And with the whole front part of the foot lifted, so I'm just on the heel, I can really balance and rebalance the relationship between the inner and outer ankle. That can be helpful. Balance and rebalance. And this repetition and coming back, it's fascinating, and it's what yoga's about. If you start thinking yoga's about the postures, A, it's complete disrespect to the yoga tradition. And B, you'll never learn to completely fall in love with it that way. That's just following some sort of neurosis. If you're trying to get better at the poses, it's just part of something from your childhood you haven't resolved yet, which we all want, compassion towards that, but that's not yoga. Fingertips, walk your feet closer, a little bit closer. Go as high as you can on your fingertips and lead with the chest as you come up. Bring energy down to your feet. So, really let the energy come down to your feet. And you can shake out if you want and bounce and whatever you want. Now, take your feet apart and have a little bend at your knees and really drop the energy down. So feet are hip width apart now. We ascertain hip width by pushing our pelvis to one side, which I call the hitchhiker's position. And then you can feel where the bone sticks out further. And that's where we're going to align from there down to the little toe side of the feet. Okay. And then if you look down at your feet, like I'm doing now, you can imagine you're standing on parallel lines, as if there were a parallel line running between the gap between the second and third toe and out in the middle of the heels. And then we're going to raise our arms, and you can wiggle your fingers if you want to, because of course that moves the nerves, three main nerves, the median, the ulnar, and the radial nerve that run from the brachial plexus in the upper back to the fingertips. And nerves aren't just sort of some imaginal thing, they're physical. And they're surrounded by meningeal fascia, and that fascia benefits from movement. And nerves benefit from less compression on them. They react to compression. And that causes it. So, let's get some fluidity. Now, stretch up as you suck your tummy in. Inhale, stretch up. Exhale, bend your ankles, knees, and hips and play with it. We're going to hinge forwards a little bit from the hip joints. We can allow any movements that help us, like moving up or backwards or forwards, or sometimes it's useful to bring one arm back and one arm forwards, or lean back. Or the thing is, we're looking for looseness within our own experience. So it's largely irrelevant what other people are doing. You have to do what's appropriate, a direct response to how things are exactly now. So you can't have too many limitations. Yoga should be, according to the text, sahaja, spontaneous. Spontaneous. The pose itself is called utkatta, which means to squat, which is an option, but not an option for some. And some people have got quite raised talus bones. Anyone who's done lots of ballet may have raised talus bones. So it's very hard to squat. Let's come up from wherever we came down to. Take a big wide circle. Bring your hands to your heart. Shake your legs a little bit, Elvis Presley. And breathe easy. So the idea of shaking the legs is just to let the energy kind of come down. Let it drop down. One of my deep desires when I was a kid was to own the game Kerplunk. And I never did own the game, but please don't, it's too late now. Don't buy it, fans. You might feel compassion for me. I can't afford it now. But I yearned for that game. There was something about these falling marbles that really appealed to me. I also wanted buckaroo, but that's a different thing. I never got that. Never got buckaroo, but I wanted both. But these kind of cascading marbles, that's the kind of vibe when you bring energy down to your feet, right? Like you're taking out the things from the marvelous game Kerplunk. Breathe easy to yourself. Okay, bring your feet together. Now, Utkatta, squatting, is a traditional yoga practice, and this next pose is a traditional yoga practice. Things like Trikonasana, Pajvakonasana, Virabhadrasana, they are not. But it depends what you call tradition, I suppose. But Vrikshasana is. So this is the tree pose. We're going to release our hands. We're going to look down at our right foot and just raise the heel. And just rest the heel on the inner ankle of the opposite leg. And breathe through your nose and be relaxed. And feel free to play. I quite like moving so I can feel my foot arches come online. And if you start feeling alive in the leg, you might contemplate bringing your foot up to cup the knee. Or even to bring the foot up to the top of the inner thigh. And the hands could be in prayer position. We know this practice is, some form of this practice is very, very ancient. Textually, we have references going back to Alexander the Great, a textual reference from 150 before Common Era, from a text written by the famous Greek Strabo in his text, the Geographica. One of the things about tree pose is while you're doing this, you're not following habituated patterns, right? So, you're not picking up your phone. I'm sure some people could try, but, you're not picking up your phone. You're not reaching for oral entertainment, biscuits, chocolate, crisps. And so that's the purpose, to come back to it again and again. It's the purpose. In some versions of this practice, still practiced by the standing Bubbas of Mumbai, one takes a vow to stand on one leg pretty much continuously. I'm sure there must be breaks for going to the toilet, but pretty much continuously for 12 years. So, I know we've been standing for about a minute, but it ain't nothing compared to that. 12 years. Standing Bubbas of Mumbai. Okay, release your hands and place your foot. Place your foot down. Why they do it? It's in my third book.
No other responsibility.
Exactly. No cats to feed, no bills to pay. Anyway, shake out a bit. That's why the pose is called tree pose, because originally the support was hung from a tree, like a swing that you could use to help you stand for that long on one leg. Okay, bring the other leg up. You've got the different options. Inner ankle is a good place to start. Cupping the knee I quite like it, but it's cupping the knee. If you're doing that, it's not heel on the knee, it's cupping with the arches of the foot or up at the top of the thigh. In an ideal situation, the foot is on the adductor muscles of the inner thigh rather than the quadricep muscles. Hands to the heart, breathing through your nose. So, to understand why people would even dream of standing on one leg for 12 years at a time, you have to understand the law of karma and the South Asian view of the law of karma and the sort of trappedness going around in a circle of being caught in karmic reactions forever and ever, as it were. So standing on one leg is abstinence. You're no longer creating karma, but also it was thought that you burn it up as well, through this sort of austerity of it. Strabo's Geographica doesn't mention a swing. He says that the practitioners held a stick. So he called them Danda Swamis, stick. Swami means master of oneself. Okay, groovy, as I would say if I was Austin Powers. Stretch out, limber out, move in any way that you wanna, and take deep, natural breaths. Now, you might need to use a belt, and don't worry if you think, oh, I haven't got a belt, can't be asked to get one. I'll bring some round. Looks like quite a lot of you do have belts, but anyone not got a belt, let me know, obviously. Thank you. On Zoom, I can't bring you a belt. You've got one, Jess. Great. A pleasure. Anyone else? Anyone? Any Zoomers need a belt? One of my jokes. So, so it's one arm behind the other and holding like this, but you might need to use a belt or a strap. Of course, at home, even if you don't have a yoga belt, you don't need to use an official yoga belt. Any belt will do. You can even use a sock. I suppose if you handled it gently and just gave it a little gentle stretch, you could even use a household pet, like a gerbil or something. Just give a little gentle stretch like that. Head up. Obviously, that was a joke. Head up, breathe through the nose. The descending fibers of the trapezius muscle, which runs from your neck to your shoulders, is getting a stretch. I think we agree. Remember the two stepping stones of yoga. So simple. You want to get from the experience of things being separate and conditioned and discrete and autonomous to an experience where things are clearly interdependent: breath, brain, body, self and other, elements of the body with other elements of the body. And so you feel a rich sensation like a stretch. And you give to that rich sensation through your breath. But the pose, when you begin to give, it will begin to ask you, it will begin to offer you the opportunity to let go of some of your problems too. Right? And it's up to you whether you say yes or not. Alternatively, you could just drift off into an alternate mind-created universe. That's okay too. Okay, release nice and easy. Take a breath. Bring energy down, like that game of Kaplunk, just removing a few of the straws and some of the marbles go down. Perhaps some of you even had that game. We're lucky enough to have that. Did you have that game? I wish I could come to your house. Let's go the other way. I don't know. I don't think it was particularly expensive. I don't know why I never got it. Breathe through the nose. Maybe health or safety. Maybe they thought I'd just eat all the marbles. I suppose I was that kind of kid. So the opposite, arm up, breathe through your nose. Brain relaxed, eyes relaxed. And, anytime you feel drifty or spacey, then release a few of the marbles. So you feel energy coming down to the ground, through the body. So you're not just drifting off into the, the realm of the head. So breathing through the nose, probably a little bit of tone in the tummy feels useful, light tone in the tummy. And then focus on the sensations. Focus on the sensations. And that's not enough. It's not enough to focus on the sensations. You have to give to them for it to be yoga. Having the sensations, doing the stretches, that's not yoga. Giving to them, that's yoga. That allows prana to flow, energy to flow. Okay, nice and easy. Slow and easy. Release if you're ready. Bit more Kaplunk. Some people might not even know what game Kaplunk is, perhaps. Does everyone know what the game Kaplunk is? Marbles in a thing. Do look it up if you've never heard of it. Stretch your arms out like you're going to hug a tree. I have to admit, I've only hugged one tree this year. I've only done one this year, and that was probably in February. Maybe it was March. Anyway, I must do more tree hugging, and so must you. The right arm over the top of the left, and then repeat. And then repeat. And you can do that as many times as you like until you feel ready to fully wrap the arms around each other. Now, that might mean the back of the hands come together. It might mean you just catch your thumb or something. But wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. And breathing. Now, if you feel your arms are compressing down on your chest, and then that will compress down on the bottom breastbone, xiphoid cartilage, bottom of the breastbone, then it's very useful sometimes to raise the arms up off the chest a little bit. But if you do that, feel that you're also driving your shoulder blades forwards into the back ribs, in a way that's gentle and breath-centered. You never abandon your breath. Gentle and breath-centered. And you're always waiting for your breath to catch up. Years ago, when the boys were little, my boys were little, and they're not little now. They're both married now. But particularly when Eli was little, I used to call him Sharp Eyes because he'd always be looking at the ground, and if there was a 20-pence piece or something on the floor, Sharp Eyes would find it. But he wouldn't half dawdle. So I'd be walking on ahead, and then it'd be like, oh, Eli, what are you doing? He'd be staring at the ground, Sharp Eyes. So, but I would never proceed without him, or without Kieran. Right? I'd go back, or I'd wait for him to catch up with me. Same with the breath, that same level of priority. If you were in charge of a cute little kid, and you're going for a walk with them, if they dawdled, you'd wait for them to catch up, or you'd go back for them. Same for the breath. Right? You don't walk on without it. Okay, release slow and easy. Take a few deep breaths. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, tongue soft. Stretch your arms out. Breathe through your nose. So it's like you look like you're an inspiring advert for B vitamins or iron or something, or one of those, goji berry powder or something we're being ripped off about. And then the other arm over the top, do that several times. I'm a sucker for all of those. Any new phase of a superfood, I'm like, yeah, I'll pay any money for that. But let's not forget that food itself is super. So don't spend all your money. Spirulina, I bought, that's disgusting, isn't it? Oof, I hate that. Goji berries, I was into them. Reishi mushrooms, I've done those. Lion's mane, yes. Ashwagandha, is it called? I've had that. Maca powder, I've got them all. But the best thing of all for the body mind is for it to settle into its natural holism, for us to cross the river, as it were. The body is at one with itself. In the last 15 years, lots of people probably got, about 15 years ago, lots of people got into fascia in yoga. It was a sort of fascia fashion. Right? And people were, really into the fact that everything's interconnected in the body, interdependent in the body, tensegrity, and that's really great. But let's carry on with that interdependence. Not just that every part of the body is interdependent with every other part, but the breath's interdependent with the body, how it functions. Attitude is interdependent. And the way we view our universe is interdependent. Don't forget, you can raise the arms off the chest, but do keep the shoulder blades forwards, which you have to visualize and feel. Okay, nice and easy, slow, 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 slow. Release the arms. Give your fingers a little wiggle. Now I'm turning away, not because I don't love you, because I want to show you that we're going to hold the elbows, probably. Or we're going to bring our hands into Paschima Namaskara. So I like to swing my arms up into Paschima Namaskara. And then I use the spinous processes of the backbone, to work my shoulders. You can see me doing it using my backbone. And at the front, the chest muscles are being teased into the openness, almost fiber by fiber, through lots of repetition. And in this way, you get more union. Remember, the subject's name is union, yoga. That's what the subject is. Now, step your feet apart into a good wide stride, generous stride. Breathe through your nose. Eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft, chest wide. Jaw relax. Turn your back toes in, front foot and leg out, whole body's turning that way. Can't point, both my arms are tied up. But lift your back heel up, externally rotate it towards this side of the room and bring it down. Walk your front foot further across the width of the mat, so you've got a more stable stride. It's wider, more stable, it's easier to square up. Breathe calmness. We're not tolerating poses so we can tick the yoga box and go home and have a well-deserved decaf latte. But, the poses are an opportunity to notice where resistance is. If the shoulders are being asked to pull backwards, notice what's pulling them forwards. Notice the energy that's pulling them forwards. There's an invitation to let that go. What is that that's pulling them forwards? Habit. Association with ideas about what we think the future's going to be like. Purifying the nerves means letting go of these habits. Inhale, stretch up from the inner groin of the back leg. Exhale, extend and breathe through your nose. Extend forwards and breathe through your nose. The back leg can feel like it's escaping back behind us. That's quite a good feeling to foster. The hinging is from the hip joints. Again, we study resistance. We don't ignore it. We don't try to overwhelm it. We study it and we even ask it, what do you need to be able to come on board with this? And often the resistance will say things like, oh, time. I need time to come on board. Or I just need a bit of your attention. Leading with the bottom of the breastbone, coming up, turning back to the front, keeping your hands in position even if you're desperate to release them, turning all the way around to the other side and walking the front foot further across the width of the mat while lifting the back heel, externally rotating it, descending it. Breathe through your nose if you can. Why? Because it warms, filters, hydrates, and slows the incoming breath. Focus on the inner groin of the back leg. We're going to stretch that inner groin up on the inhalation. So inhale when you're ready. Stretch the groin, lift the chest. Exhale, keep the groin lengthened or lengthened from the groin. Notice opposition, for example, in the collarbone shoulder area. And instead of kind of ignoring it, just kind of carrying on regardless,
go to that opposition and ask it directly. What do you need to come on board? And it will often say, time. Or attention, just hold me in your attention for a bit and I'll be able to release, it will say. Lead with the bottom of the breastbone to ascend. Well done, gang. Don't rush up. Turn to the front. Walk your feet towards each other. And I know I won't have to say this twice. Release your arms. I'll only have to say, oh my Lord. Give yourself a little moment, kick out if you want, have a little walk up, just sort of loosen up anyway. Have a little dance to whatever music you like on the inside. I've got I Believe in Miracles by Hot Chocolate going on. So I really like. Okay, and then that's, we're going to lay down, but we're going to use 2 blocks, dos bloques, which are going to be this way, like that, like this. I'm just going to lay them down for someone like that. That's my pleasure. So 2 blocks at one end of your mat, and then you're going to fold the mat over the 2 blocks. You can have a little gap between the blocks, especially if you've got long shins. I know it's a bit, I don't know if people know they've got, you normally know what color their eyes are. So I've got blue eyes. They don't really know what length their shins are necessarily. But anyway, have a gap and then it will provide for long shins if you happen to have them. You're going to lay down with crossed legs. Your legs are crossed, but your bum's on the floor. If you're a little tight in the knees or back, you can use a blanket like that, like we did at the beginning of the class. Fingers face forwards towards the bum. You lift the bum and scoot it under. You come down to your elbows, lift and scoot under again. Take the elbows out to the sides and you come down to laying down on your back. If your head tips back, at least temporarily, pop your hands underneath your head with your fingers interlaced. If your head tips back. In fact, let's just do that anyway. Bring your hands underneath your head with the fingers interlaced. And then take a couple of deep breaths or so. If your elbows come forwards towards each other, take your attention to your chest muscles. Now, the release of the chest muscles is codependent with the release of the breath. One can't release without the other. And the release of the breath will bring an invitation for us to release the mind, views, opinions, ideas, expectations. Now, by releasing the mind, what we mean is releasing attachment. And what we mean by attachment is a focus on something that associates it with words like me and mine and myself. So thoughts come and go all the time. That's the mind is a sausage factory, is a metaphor. It's constantly making ideas and thoughts up out of whatever's in the nervous system and whatever is coming into the nervous system through the senses at any given moment. And it makes a thought and it comes out and it's just these constant thoughts being created all the time. If we realize that they're a process, a natural process, to see if there's anything that we can recognize as a pattern. It just gathers things together and says, do they fit? Makes a thought, spits it out. Many thoughts are incongruent. So we just let that happen. The Yoga Sutras tell us to move backwards through to the sort of
most basic origins of our experience. And one of the most basic origins of our experience is the constant creation of thoughts. So you go back to just seeing that's what the mind does. And then you realize one of the most basic elements of thought is this, what's called the ahankara, the I maker. Kara means to make. Aham means I am. So the I am maker. And so that's constantly happening as well, you know. Anything that's going on, the ahankara says it's me. It's like body has a cold, I've got a cold, I'm ill. We're feeling, you know, tired, I'm tired. Bored, I'm bored. But these are just like weather patterns passing through everything. You know, everything affects everything. Change the cross of your legs. The other one goes in front. Pretty simple. Catch a deep breath in with a deep breath out when you're ready. Eyes relaxed, jaw relaxed, brain relaxed. Feel your inner thigh muscles. They're called the adductors. There's an adductor brevis, there's an adductor brevis longus magnus, a long one, a large one, a short one. And there are other muscles beside, like the pectineus and the gracilis, all on the inner thigh. Feel any connection between releasing in a soft way the skin, the fascia of the inner thigh, and a releasing of the breath. And notice when you bring those two things together, the invitation will come to let go of attachments to the past, attachments to the future, and attachments to ideas about oneself in the present, including what we might call problems. The recommendation is when they're being invited to release, accept the invitation. Because if you release a problem, you don't have to solve it. There's nothing there to solve. And that itself is the best of all solutions. Okay, bring your legs back together, feet onto the blocks. Just lift your head for a moment and gaze at the Nabha chakra, the navel center. So gaze means to bring attention to the area. So when we say look at an area or gaze at an area, yes, the eyes can be focused in that direction, but the attention is as if you're looking into the sensations. Right the way through the deep belly, as if you're trying to feel into areas of particular richness, areas that you can almost map viscerally, you can almost feel. Head comes back down. Let me hear you take a deep breath in with a deep breath out, maybe even like a sigh. And let a few of those deep breaths just happen. Just happen. Now, while you're letting the breath happen, release your hands from behind your head, flex your hips, and hug those lovely legs of yours. Give them a hug. Most people like to hug their legs together, with them together, touching. Some people like to do it with their toes touching, but their knees apart. Up to you. I'm still 33 years in. I'm still definitely prefer knees apart. I think the majority prefer knees together, or at least the majority of people bring their knees together. But knees apart, for me anyway, affects the body quite differently, to knees together. So it's worth trying different ways. See what works for you in terms of release. We're always looking for release. Head can roll with the body if you want, or the head can roll on its own and the body stays still. Up to you. And eventually we can just roll right over onto one side. And once we've done that, we're releasing the legs, and we'll come up from the side, nice and easy, please. And we're going to sit probably on a cork block if you got one. If not, you can use the short end of regular blocks like that. But cool, I think in the Matika here, the little monastery, Matika means little monastery. I call it the Matika. No one else at the Buddhist Centre does, but I quite like to call it that. We've got brick blocks, so if you're happy to sit on one of those. You can sit higher, you can have blankets, or you can sit in a totally different position as long as you're comfortable. So this position that I'm, as a suggestion, is called Siddhasana. And there are lots of versions, and the Hatha Pradipika says this is the best posture. The Hatha Pradipika is not always a reliable source of information, but I think it is a good posture. If your knees are floating, put a blanket underneath so that, some support. And then chest is up, breathing through your nose. So we're just going to do a little practice called nyasa, where you place mantras into the body, the sukshma sharira, which means the subtle body. In other words, the subtle body means a subtle awareness of the body. Right? That's what it means. Rather than like asking you to believe that there's the body that we all know and then there's a subtle body that, do I believe in that? No, it's not saying believe, it's just saying subtle awareness of your own body here. So we're going to place the mantra Om into a few places along the central channel. By placing it, I mean we chant it out loud, and as we chant it out loud, we imagine we're placing it, we're planting it in these areas to act as a sort of orientation. It acts as a sort of anchor. So the first place we're going to plant it is the pelvic floor. So all you're going to do is take a deep breath in and chant Om. And then rest and take a deep breath. The next place we're going to place it is what's called the khanda, so 3 finger widths below the navel. So when you're ready, you can find 3 finger widths below the navel, and then inhale. Then the navel itself. So deep breath in. Then the heart center. So when you're ready. And then the throat, which means extremely pure. Again, when you feel ready. And then the Ajna chakra, the forehead center. And finally, the Sahasrara at the crown of the head. And then deep breaths. Now you've mapped out a central channel with these mantras all the way along it. So perhaps you could imagine, you could feel those mantras all the way along it. And a central channel is a visceral correlate to the idea of not being in duality, like success, failure, good, bad, you, me, right, wrong, can, can't, heaven and hell. Okay, well, we better lay down on our backs because we've got precisely 60 seconds left of the class. But maybe I'll allow for 75 seconds of asana. Mm-hmm. Feeling generous today. I know. Give, that's me. But it won't start until everyone's ready, so don't rush and don't worry, because sometimes you think 75 seconds, I've got to run. But no, it only starts from when the last person is down and comfortable, and that includes the Zoomers. Shoulder blades tucked under, scooted under, palms facing up. Breathing through the nose if you can. Total release everywhere. Skin, muscles, sinews, bones, everywhere. Wiggle your toes and fingers and feel into the body. Quite nice to feel into it, almost as if it was something new, with that kind of interest. And when you're ready, bend your legs and place the soles of the feet on the floor. And that gives you an opportunity to scoot the buttocks under and then to take a really deep breath to let the lower back release entirely. And take a few of those. Take a few of those deep breaths. When you're ready, roll over onto your side facing away from the shrine side of the room where the Buddha picture is, and draw your knees up. tummy soft, jaw soft, throat soft. Roll again when you feel ready. Similarly, making yourself comfortable with the knees drawn up. And the tummy soft. So you're laying on your other side, facing towards the shrine side. And let yourself come round naturally. A little light comes into your eyes, a little color. You might stretch out an arm or a leg. And when you feel ready to come up, you bring yourself up real easily from the side, using your arms to help you come up. Now we did that little Buddhist thing. It's quite nice to do Buddhist things when you're in a place like this, all Buddhist-y everywhere. It's all Buddhist-y everywhere, isn't it? So it's nice to do this. We did a little Buddhist thing at the beginning. We'll do the same thing at the end. If you feel these following words, remember they include this being who's saying them, this being who's saying them. If you feel these following words, then say Om at the end. So hands to prayer if you want. May any merit gained in our acting in this way go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Later on today, there's a pranayama workshop here in this very room. I don't know where, I didn't find my glasses today. I got these out of the lost and found cupboards so I can still see you Zoomers. Thanks very much. Have a marvelous day and see you soon. Bye. Thank you.